An author who wrote How to Murder Your Husband is now on trial for allegedly murdering her husband. On June 22, 2018, 63-year-old Daniel Brophy was shot and killed in Oregon. Months later, his wife Nancy was arrested for his murder. Apparently, the couple was struggling financially, and Nancy would have received over $1 million in the case of her husband's death. On the couple's shared iTunes account, police also found an article bookmarked that was titled 10 Ways to Cover Up a Murder.
It's time for Cookies and Crime. This is the death of Conrad Roy. Conrad Henry Roy III was born September 12, 1995 in Mattapoisett, Massachusetts. He was sometimes socially anxious, attending school and going into the classroom. In June 2014, he graduated on the honor roll from Old Rochester Regional High School. He was an all-around high school athlete who played baseball, rode crew, and ran track. He graduated with a 3.88 GPA and was accepted to Fitchburg State University to study business, but at that point decided not to go. In 2012, while visiting relatives in Florida, Conrad met Michelle Carter. After this initial encounter, they saw each other in person again only a handful of times over the course of 2 years, despite having lived only about 35 miles away from each other. Michelle Diana Carter was born August 11, 1996 in Plainville, Massachusetts. As a young child, she suffered from an eating disorder and also harmed herself. She was on prescription psychiatric medication from the age of 14 and attended counseling at McLean Hospital in Belmont. Through their conversations, Conrad told Carter about being physically hit by his father and verbally abused by his grandfather. He tried to unalive himself in October 2012 after his parents divorced. After learning that he was planning to unalive himself, Carter repeatedly discouraged him from doing so in 2012 and 2014 and encouraged him to get professional help. However, her attitude changed in July 2014 when she started thinking that it would be a good thing to help him die. In June, Conrad had texted Carter suggesting they act like Romeo and Juliet. Carter had no plans of taking her own life but still encouraged Conrad to do so. Here are some of their messages. This is from Carter. So I guess you aren't gonna do it then. All that for nothing. I'm just confused, like you were so ready and determined. Conrad, I am gonna eventually. I don't know what I'm waiting for, but I have everything lined up. Carter, no, you're not, Conrad. Last night was it. You just keep pushing it off and you say you're gonna do it, but you never do. It's always gonna be that way if you don't take action. You're just making it harder on yourself by pushing it off. You just have to do it. Do you want to do it now? Then on Sunday, July 13, 2014, following text exchanges with Carter while interacting with his family, Roy died by unaliving himself, by poisoning himself with carbon monoxide fumes in his truck in a Kmart parking lot. After their conversations were exposed, Michelle Carter was indicted on February 4, 2015 on charges of involuntary manslaughter. The grand jury found enough to charge her with wantonly and recklessly assisting his death. She was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison, but was released January 2020.
Let's talk about what happened to Cynthia Martinez Perez. Cynthia was born on July 13th and lived in Tigard, Oregon. She was the oldest of 6, and she absolutely loved spending time with her family and was really close to her mother Angelica and her stepfather Cesar. Fast forward to July of 2017, Cynthia had just given birth to her daughter Sophia, and she was now living in Woodburn, Oregon. She now had 4 children, and she couldn't be happier. She absolutely loved being a mother and was so happy that her family was growing. On Saturday, July 15, 2017, Angelica and Cesar took Cynthia out to breakfast to celebrate her birthday. She had turned 26 years old 2 days earlier, so they took her out to breakfast, and they took this photo of Cynthia and her baby Sophia. During breakfast, they made plans to go out hiking the next day, and before breakfast was over, Cynthia asked her parents if they could watch Sophia that night. She said she wanted to go to a quinceañera, and the parents were like, yeah, of course, we'll watch Sophia, you go and have fun. Later that night, Cynthia got all ready and took the selfie before heading out to the quinceañera. Cynthia arrived to the quinceañera, and at around 10:30 p.m., Angelica called her just to check in. Cynthia said she was going home soon, but was just waiting for them to cut the cake. Then Angelica went to bed and was just expecting to see Cynthia the next morning for their hike. The next morning, Angelica and the rest of the family wake up and start getting ready for the hike. Everyone is ready to go, but they're just waiting for Cynthia to show up. The family thought that Cynthia might have just slept in since the night before she had gone out to that quinceañera, so they continued to wait. but Cynthia never showed up. Angelica called the Woodburn Police Department and reported Cynthia as missing, but they weren't too helpful. They said that Cynthia was an adult, so she technically could leave on her own, and they didn't offer to help. So Angelica took it upon herself to go out and search for her daughter. After talking to a few people, Angelica discovered that Cynthia had reunited with a female friend at this quinceañera. This female friend was like, hey, let's go out for your birthday, let's go to a bar and have some drinks. So after the quinceañera ended, Cynthia and this friend went to this Tequila Nights bar in Kaiser, Oregon. Angelica and Cesar head over to this bar and they start looking at the security footage and they spot Cynthia. Since she was wearing a romper, she didn't have any pockets, so she gave her friend her cell phone, her wallet, her ID, all that stuff to carry. At the start of the surveillance footage, Cynthia and the friend look completely normal. They're just having fun, having some drinks, just hanging out. Then after a while, Cynthia's friend just leaves the bar and leaves Cynthia there alone. Remember, this friend has Cynthia's cell phone, her ID, her wallet, so Cynthia was pretty much just stranded there alone. Cynthia goes to the parking lot to look for her friend, and when she comes back inside the bar, she's no longer alone. She's now accompanied by these two Hispanic men. Part 2 should be up now. This is part 2 on what happened to Cynthia Martinez Perez. So Cynthia is now with these two Hispanic men, and they're pretty much just talking in the bar. Then at around 2:35 in the morning, when the bar closes, Cynthia leaves to the parking lot with the two men. Police assume that somewhere during the conversation, Cynthia told them that she was phoneless and was trying to get back to her home in Woodburn, and that these men said they were also heading to Woodburn and offered Cynthia a ride. They walked over to this blue 2004 Honda Odyssey minivan that belonged to one of the men. When they opened the door, there was a child's car seat inside, so police believe that maybe Cynthia saw this and felt more comfortable with the men. Maybe she saw this car seat and thought to herself, okay, this is a father, an uncle, or something, he has a child in his life, so he should be safe. Cynthia gets inside the minivan with these men and they drive away. Angelica makes this post on Facebook asking if anyone recognizes who this man was, and someone does. They identify this man as 30-year-old Jaime Alvarez Olivera. Somehow Angelica gets this man's home address and she shows up and starts knocking on the door. When she pulls up to the house, the blue minivan seen on surveillance footage is parked in the driveway. So she's knocking and finally a woman opens up. Angelica asks this woman if she knows who Jaime is and where he is, and she says she has no idea who that is. But Angelica wasn't going to take no for an answer, so she continued to knock until the woman said, fine, he's my husband, but I don't know where he is. Then this woman called the cops on Angelica because she wouldn't leave her front door. When police arrive, they tell Angelica that she needs to leave, and she tells them, listen, this guy was the last person seen with my daughter, I need your help. And the police tell her that they can't help her because Cynthia disappeared in the Kaiser area, not the Woodburn, so she needs to go contact the Kaiser Police Department. Thankfully, the Kaiser Police Department takes Angelica seriously and they officially file Cynthia as missing. Police find one of the men that was with Cynthia that night, and they haven't released his name to the public because he was cooperating with police. He admits that he was with Cynthia that night, but he was the first one to get dropped off at his house, and then Jaime and Cynthia drove off alone. Kaiser is around 25 minutes away from where Cynthia lived in Woodburn, so anything could have happened during that 25-minute drive. Police believe that Jaime left the area on Sunday, July 16th, the day after Cynthia was last seen. He could possibly still be in the United States, he could be in Mexico now, he could be anywhere. Police have searched his van, but they haven't released to the public what they found. To this day, in 2022, Jaime has still not been found, and there is a $10,500 reward out for him. Cynthia's body has never been found, and this gives the family hope that she's still out there and is still alive. So please, if you know anything about Cynthia or Jaime's whereabouts, please contact the Kaiser Police Department. Please share her flyers, share her photo, and hopefully someone out there knows where she is. I hope that Cynthia will be found soon.